The wind tore across the desolate land, a haunting whisper of the past. Dust rose like memories from the earth, swirling in an empty dance. The sheriff hadn't spoken in days. He was tracking something older than guilt, something that twisted in the very heart of the village. A figure emerged on the horizon, limbs long and weary, clutching at shadows and moments lost. The village lay quiet under the unforgiving sun, homes huddled like a cluster of bones stripped bare by time. The streets were empty, yet a palpable hum of tension loomed. As the pilgrim approached, he squinted against the brightness, the sun bathing him in harsh reality. He could feel eyes watching, gauging whether he was a ghost or a man. "You're back. We waited long," a villager said, standing too still. A smile plastered on a face that had seen too much. It was too bright, a mask of forced joy over the abyss. "I didn't mean to come back," the pilgrim admitted, looking away. Curious glances followed him as he moved through the town square. Each familiar face felt like a wound reopened. He sensed an undercurrent, an electrified silence that spoke of things hidden in plain sight. "What happened here?" he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "The night came. The earth spoke. We survived." An old woman croaked, her voice as cracked as the dry earth. His pulse quickened as dread rose within him, curling around his heart. The village shifted around him, its inhabitants tightening the noose of familiarity. Something dark coiled beneath the surface of their existence. As night fell, the village glowed with an eerie, too gentle light. The laughter of neighbors reminded him of a marriage between the damned and the insane. Each chuckle echoed unnaturally, too high-pitched, too large. "Marla," he called into the night, a name heavy with history and longing. A figure emerged, shrouded in darkness, her face half-turned from him. "You shouldn't have come back," she said, her tone drifting like smoke. "Why are you here?" he asked, a broken edge in his voice, clawing his way through the memories that washed over him like a tide. She stepped forward, holding his gaze. "We all have our roles. Yours was different than you thought." "What do you mean?" "You're the first, the chosen." The ground shifted beneath him, solid and yet unstable, a reflection of his spiraling thoughts. "What madness is this?" he shouted, the night swallowing his words, the village taking on a menacing hue. "Or a gift," a voice echoed, rising from dark places he could not comprehend, from depths he feared to visit. He found the entrance to the underground, a gnarled root jutting out from the earth, pulling him closer into its maw. He descended, each step resonating with dread. A damp chamber awaited him, carved from shadow and echo. An ancient entity pulsated there, a swirl of darkness bridging the gap between worlds. "You come seeking peace," it began, voice smooth as silk and cold as iron. "But you were always the price." He felt the weight of the shadows closing in around him, a promise of binding. "Then let the ritual commence." The words echoed in his mind, half-formed fears gathering in the corners of his consciousness. Before him, robed figures scuttled away, shadows in reverence, held captive by some unseen force. "Release what you've kept buried," the entity urged, offering a caress that sent chills racing down his spine. Silence swallowed him whole. "I won't be a part of this," he replied vehemently, frustration spilling into anger. "There must be another way." "There is no other way," it insisted, shredding his resolve. He felt the ground beneath him shifting, the village wrapping around him like a living thing, intent on consuming his soul. He pressed his hands against the earth, trembling with the urgency to escape, to flee the darkness clinging to him. As he pushed through the shadows, he searched for the truth, hidden beneath every whispered word. Emerging from the darkness, he flowed through the village, watching as it morphed into a twisted reflection of its former self, all smiling faces harboring dark secrets. Marla stood before him, her eyes devoid of the warmth he once knew. "You cannot deny your destiny," she proclaimed, exuding authority and despair intertwined. "You were supposed to be free. This was never your fate. A naivete clings to you still," she said, a cruel smile breaking across her face. "Freedom is a lie we tell ourselves in the dark." He saw now the darkness twisting within her, an ancient shadow lurking just beneath the surface, waiting. The weight of her words pressed against his chest, squeezing in anticipation of despair. "Fight!" he urged, grasping at her presence. But the plea fell flat. The world around him twisted and warped, shadows mocking his desperation. "You're part of this too?" "I have no choice," she replied, voice low, raw. "Neither do you. Then let me go," he shouted as panic suffocated his will, the ground swelling against him. Behind him, whispers echoed, growing louder until they became a tide, a chant rising above his protests. "The blood of the pilgrim will seal it." He stumbled back, feeling the walls breathe with a sinister hunger as darkness clawed at his mind. Panic seized him. A primal instinct to escape surged forth. He spun, darting through twisting hallways that seemed to mock him with illusions of escape. "Don't run!" they cried out, laughter bubbling up, fierce and cruel. The village had sealed its fate. The trees lived. He remembered Wood with a pulse, sensing his fear. And with that knowledge came another understanding, another truth. He should have never returned. He burst into the sacred sanctuary. It was a wild place of cracked earth and shadow, candles flickering with phantom flames. The shadows moved, curling around him, spirits blending with the dark. He turned, confronting the entity looming before him, whispering promises laced with danger. "You're meant for more than this." "No," he replied fiercely, heart racing with desperation. "This ends now." The flames erupted from the sanctuary with a roar, consuming the shadows and illuminating his resolve. "I swear to destroy this evil." The world froze as his words reverberated, and in that silence, ancient eyes bore down upon him. "You were meant to save us!" The shadows hissed, the fabric of reality straining. "No, I was meant to end this." As his voice broke through the tension, he threw the torch into the cavern, flames licking upward. The fire roared alive, consuming everything, suffocating darkness. The village twisted and writhed, as if wrestling from their eternal pact. "Burn it all!" he screamed, a rebirth emerging from the flames. But with each crackle and ember, the darkness within him pulsed, awake and hungry. The walls of bondage fell away, opening up a vista of regret. He watched as the flames painted the sky in strokes of desperate orange and gold. And within that moment of reckoning, irritation filled him with clarity and purpose. Those shadows danced just outside the light. The village burned, reduced to glowing embers and ashes. Yet the darkness that had once wrapped around him now swirled within, alive and bending to will. Regret wrapped around him like a shroud, thick and heavy. "You think you freed us?" the shadows whispered, edges creeping closer. "No," he replied quietly. "I've lost everything." "You have gained a legacy of darkness," they corrected him, fingers outstretched, ready to reclaim what was lost. The flames leapt high, consumed the very air he breathed, and he stumbled away from the hidden paths of memory, pushing through the village's decaying remnants. now devoid of life. Justice in a place with no laws, he pondered softly. What would that look like? He could feel their eyes, the faces of the lost, watching his ascent into the night. Each breath tasted of ash, but he pressed on, seeking solace in the vast empty spaces that lay ahead. The shadows lingered, whispering secrets of what he had meant to be. He ventured onward, feeling the pull of time, the darkness beckoning an echo of his own horrors consuming him. As darkness fell around him, the stars blinked out one by one, swallowed by a tapestry of despair. He walked on, an exile of his own making, a pilgrim without purpose, knowing well he would never return. Can a man become good by doing bad things for the right reasons? He asked the void that stretched before him, but he pressed ahead, knowing that every step would cement his legacy, a trail paved with shadows, a path that curdled the mind. In the dark silence of an endless horizon, he became a specter bound to the earth, walking toward his fate. If this story left dust in your throat, follow the next trail with us. The journey stretched endlessly before him, a barren landscape littered with the remnants of lives once lived. Each step felt heavy, a reminder of the blood that now coursed through his veins, a sinister weight, an inheritance of darkness to bear alone. The sun dipped low, its dying rays casting long shadows that reached like skeletal hands across the lifeless earth. As he wandered deeper into the unknown, the memories of the village clung to him like fog. Faces twisted in smiles, laughter that echoed in hollow tones. These images haunted him, each one a reminder of the price paid. The pact woven with the dark forces was never meant to be broken, yet here he was, a pilgrim turned outcast, carrying the burden of their sins. Ahead, a ridge rose in the distance, silhouetted against the bleeding horizon. He felt drawn to it, compelled by an instinct he barely understood. As he climbed, the air grew cooler, a stark contrast to the burning sands of the village. Each footfall echoed his resolve, the ground beneath him hard and unyielding, like the truth he could no longer avoid. Once atop the hill, he paused to catch his breath, surveying the stretch of land that seemed never-ending. The shadows lengthened, curling around the parched ground, and he could almost hear the whispers of the village swirling in the breeze. "You were meant for more," they murmured, a chorus of regret and accusation. "No," he whispered back, voice low and firm. "I was meant to end this." The conviction in his voice surprised him. It ignited a spark deep within, a flicker of hope against the smothering dread. In that moment, he decided he would not be tied to that legacy of darkness. He felt the weight of their expectations, the shadows clawing at his past, but he would stride ahead. The truth clawed at the edges of his consciousness, a truth buried in sacred ground and stained with blood. The stars blinked into existence, scattered like shards of glass across the dark, expansive sky, and he could feel them watching. They bore witness to his crisis, each glimmer a reminder of his choices and the paths he had taken. The weight of his decisions hung heavily on his soul, warping the purity of memory. "Is this my fate?" he questioned, raising his eyes to the vastness above him. The universe did not respond, its silence louder than any answer could ever be. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath him on echo, a reminder of the pact that bound him to that malevolent force. Tendrils of darkness slithered into his mind, wrapping around his thoughts, suffocating his will. They whispered sweet promises, ancient desires resurfacing in a language lost to time. "You are one of us now," they hissed, a seductive melody. You will never escape what you've become. But he shook his head, steeling himself against their influence. I am not a servant to shadows, he declared, voice strong against the night. I refuse to be a pawn in your game. In defiance, he reached down to the earth, grounding himself in the moment. The very soil responded, sending ripples through the air, thrumming with an energy he had not felt before. The power of the land was immense, its spirit entwining with his own. He turned slightly, feeling a new presence, a heartbeat beneath the surface. It pulsed in rhythm with his honor bond forged through blood, through suffering, and through choices made in haste and fear. What if salvation lies beneath? He pondered. With renewed purpose, he began to dig, clawing at the earth with bare hands, desperation fueling his every movement. The soil was hard and unyielding, but beneath the surface, he sensed something shifting, something ancient yearning to be awakened. Release me, a voice urged from the depths. Not a whisper, but a roar resonating through his bones. You are the key to our liberation. His heart raced, excitement mingling with apprehension. The familiarity in the voice sent chills down his spine, a remnant of what he had left behind. He pressed on, the earth yielding to his will, and he felt the darkness retreat, shadows scattering in the wake of his determination. Finally, his fingers broke through the surface, grasping a relic and artifact lost to time, marked with sigils of old. It shimmered in the dim light, calling to him like a lament from the depths. He pulled it forth, breathless, heart pounding in sync with a newfound power coursing through him. In that moment, clarity struck. The artifact held the key to the pact, a way to sever the chains that bound the village to its ignoble fate. He could rewrite the narrative, burn away the shadows that haunted him. Take me back, he whispered to the vast cosmos, the stars twinkling in answer. Each pulse of light felt like time bending and reshaping, urging him forward. He stood, determination surging through him like wildfire, ready to face whatever awaited him back in the village of shadows. There would be a reckoning, a confrontation long overdue. Returning down the ridge, a newfound purpose ignited his step. The horizon beckoned, unfurling in front of him with untold possibilities. With each stride, he was shedding the ghostly chains, casting them aside as he marched toward a future he could finally grasp. As he drew close to the village, the atmosphere shifted, heavy with anticipation. Shadows skittered at the edges of his vision, retreating as he approached. The air thrummed with an energy he had not felt before, an awakening of spirits long dormant. They were ready for an end to this long night, ready to reclaim their lives. He could feel their hope, their longing for freedom, and with it, an overwhelming sense of responsibility washed over him. With the artifact held tightly in hand, he stepped into the heart of the village. The faces of its inhabitants turned toward him, a collective breath held in anticipation. You've returned, Marla said, stepping forward from the throng, her eyes flickering with recognition and fear. But you were not meant to come back. Perhaps, he replied, voice steadier than he felt. But I'm not the same man who left. I know now what must be done.
Around them, the village breathed a sigh of relief tinged with uncertainty.
The shadows seemed to withdraw, but a menacing aura lingered, the final line between freedom and despair. Your actions could undo us all, Marla warned, stepping closer, the tension palpable. And your silence has cost us dearly, he countered, rage flowing hot beneath his skin. He held up the artifact as the crowd gasped collectively, an echo of fate bending beneath his will. This, he said, voice strong, is our chance to sever the pact. We will no longer be bound by the blood of the past. We will reclaim our freedom. A murmur spread, doubt mingling with hope. He could feel the shadows reevaluating their decision, the tension coiling tighter around their hearts as uncertainty reigned. But he pressed forward, casting away doubt wrapped in the energy of the artifact. Together, we can face this darkness. We must reclaim what was lost. Marla hesitated, her gaze flickering between resolve and fear written in familiar lines. What if this leads to our end? Then we will die fighting, he declared, igniting flames in the hearts of his people. But we will not die as prisoners. The village trembled, the ground alive with potential, shadows rising and falling as the villagers processed his words. "Gather!" he shouted, calling them forth. "It's time we reclaim our lives." With murmurs of commitment flowing through the crowd, they began to join him, unity forged in purpose. Together, they formed a circle, standing on the edge of the abyss that had held them captive for too long. "Now," he said, raising the artifact high, "to break the chains that bind us." The air shimmered with potential, and death hung on the precipice. Yet their voices united in defiance. "We will rise!" they echoed back around him, a thunderous roar resonating in the night. The wind howled, nature responding to their collective will, and he felt the essence of the artifact surge within him, merging with the strength of his people. Together they could illuminate the shadows, recovering lost legacy, reclaiming freedom from the remnants of fear. As the sky darkened and the stars flickered, they steeled their resolve, ready to confront the darkness that awaited them. If this tale of redemption awakens a fire within you, and if you wish to witness more captivating stories that inspire and ignite the soul, subscribe to our channel, Medieval Stories. Let the legacy of turmoil transform into one of triumph, as we journey together through time and tales that shape our very beings. Together they stood, a ripple of determination coursing through their ranks. Slowly, the energy swelled among them, the ground throbbing as though resonating with their shared pulse. His grip tightened on the artifact, feeling its power thrumming beneath his fingers, a heartbeat of hope binding them. "On this hallowed ground, we reclaim our fate," he shouted, urging his people forward. They began to chant, voices intertwining, weaving an incantation filled with defiance and resolve. As they spoke, the air thickened with energy, shadows swirling, hesitating as they began to retreat. With each word spoken, the village trembled beneath the weight of their intent. "No more sacrifices," he cried, echoing through the darkness. "No more lives stolen in the name of survival. Tonight, we seize our freedom." Marla's eyes sparkled with uncertainty but shone with a flicker of hope. "What do we do?" she asked, stepping closer, her vulnerability laid bare. "Channel your spirit," he commanded. "Let the power of our ancestors guide us. Let their pain transform into strength." A wave of belief swept through the villagers, binding them together as feet pounded the earth in rhythm and ancient dance, uniting them against the shadows that sought to consume their spirits. They lifted their voices higher, a harmonious chorus rising to rally against the encroaching darkness. With every syllable, the air crackled, shimmering with energy. The artifact pulsed in time with their chants, releasing a brilliant light that cut through the obsidian night, illuminating their faces etched with determination. But the shadows recoiled in fury, swirling violently as if wrestling against an unseen force. Whispers of fear echoed around the circle, each voice begging for reprieve from what lay in the depths of darkness. Yet deeper still surged the fire of their resolve. "Stay strong," he urged, as they felt the ground beneath them shift uneasily. "Let the light of our hope guide us. Together." He raised the artifact, the light brightening, casting a halo around their unity. The shadows hissed, retreating momentarily before clustering again, coiling in defiance. Suddenly, a chilling laughter rang out, a cacophony of mocking voices that filled the air around them. "You dare defy the inherent darkness? You are but whispers against the storm." But he pressed on, voice rising over the cacophony. "We are not just whispers. We are the storm." The villagers echoed his conviction, voices lifting together like a tide, a surge that threatened to undo the very fabric of fear holding the village captive. Shadows writhed, unable to escape their grasp, feeling the pull of unity against their malevolence. "Now," he shouted, channeling every ounce of strength within him, "let the light break the chains." As the last word escaped his lips, the artifact erupted. A brilliant flash of light surged forth, cascading across the village like a flood, tearing through the shadows. The darkness roared in anger, a tempest unspooling in protest. Yet their resolve held firm, the village standing shoulder to shoulder, emboldened by the fight for their freedom. The light blazed brighter, consuming the shadows, igniting the air with purity and strength. He could feel the darkness fighting against their will, a primordial force seeking to cling to its power. But the flames of liberation burned hot, obliterating the whispers that sought to bury them in despair. Marla reached out towards him, eyes wide, a dawning realization taking form. The darkness feeds on our fears. It will not relent until we confront it. "Yes," he cried, heart racing with possibility. "Together we confront it. We face our fears not as individuals, but as one." In that moment of clarity, they knew the truth. Each of them carried within them their own specters, burdens forged in silence. As they gathered that truth, it became a beacon of light, flooding their hearts, empowering their voices. They spoke aloud their fears, naming them one by one: loss, despair, regret. "I fear what has been taken," one elder admitted, voice trembling. "I fear never being free," another added, eyes downcast. "I fear the dark places of my soul," Marla confessed, stepping forward, her vulnerability a strength against the shadows. Each confession was a blade, cutting deep into the shadows' hold, and with every shared fear, the artifact pulsed, bathing them in cleansing energy. The light surged forth with a newfound intensity as they released their burdens, transforming them into strength and purpose. The shadows shrieked under the intensity of their honesty, twisting violently as though caught in a storm. It was a reckoning born not just from defiance, but from an acceptance of the dark, the very essence that made them whole. "Let the darkness see us," he shouted, raising the artifact high as if holding up a torch against the void. "Let it know we are unyielding. We will honor our past, but not be defined by it. We are more than our mistakes." With fury and power, they roared together. "We reclaim our lives!" And as their voices raised to a crescendo, the artifact pulsed in response, channeling their collective spirit into an unstoppable wave of brilliance. The intensity of the light shattered the shadows, overpowering every ounce of fear, finally consuming the darkness that had held them captive for so long. The energy flowed outward, washing over the village, igniting every corner, igniting a transformation. "Do you see?" Marla called, tears streaming down her face as she reached for him, a light of understanding flickering in her eyes. "Together, we are stronger." His heart swelled, and he could feel the village shift, a collective heartbeat synchronized in harmony and purpose. The shadows that lingered squeezed tighter, but the belief they shared forged an indomitable barrier, and in that moment, he knew they would rise victorious. "Now," he declared as the waves of light pulsed around them, washing away doubt. "We take back what is ours. We honor our ancestors through courage, not sacrifice." With every ounce of strength, they poured their hope, their love, their very essence into the light that emanated from the artifact. The shadows convulsed in desperation, fracturing under the sacred intensity of unity before finally dissolving into nothingness. The village breathed again, liberated from the grip of darkness, and he felt the power of their collective spirit wash over him. It was a feeling of rebirth, of possibility, unfurling in its truest form. The air crackled with energy, bursting with lifers, if the very essence of the land rejoiced in their triumph. They were free, each one a thread woven into the fabric of fate, stringing together a brighter future, a legacy transformed. As the last remnants of shadows faded into the dawn, the villagers looked at one another, awe filling their eyes, realization dawning to their hearts. They were reborn, free from the chains that had so long bound them, and before him stood Marla, her eyes bright with light and life. "We did it," she whispered, disbelief mingling with joy. "Yes," he replied, voice filled with the weight of responsibility and wonder. "Together, we can shape what comes next." With the sun rising behind them, the village found its breath again. A new day, a new beginning filled with the promise of hope. In that moment, they each understood that the past held its lessons, but the future was carved by their choices, legacy ignited by unity, courage, and love. If this journey of rebirth and resilience resonates with your spirit, if the echoes of this tale stir the embers of your imagination, subscribe to our channel, Medieval Stories, and embark on the next adventure with us. Let us wander together through the landscapes of history and folklore, where every story shapes us, igniting our souls anew. As the first rays of dawn kissed the village, a new energy pulsed through the air, alive with possibility. The villagers gathered, each face reflecting a quiet resolve, a flicker of hope that had been long extinguished. The shadows had been vanquished, but the work ahead was not without its weight. They stood united, a tapestry woven from sacrifice, strength, and shared histories. He looked over the faces surrounding him, so familiar, yet forever changed. Each one bore remnants of struggle, remnants of the shadows that had plagued their lives. Yet in this moment, they were radiant, imbued with a spirit of resilience that shimmered like the morning sun. "What now?" Marla asked softly, her voice defiant, yet tinged with uncertainty. She stepped closer, eyes glinting with the courage she had finally found within. He sighed, the enormity of the journey still pressing heavy on his shoulders. "Now we rebuild," he said, certainty threading through his voice. "We not only reclaim our village, but redefine what it means to be alive here, to live with purpose, to live in harmony." A collective breath was held, and somewhere in the gentle morning breeze, hope took flight, intertwining with the unresolved sorrow that marked the remnants of their suffered past. "What of the pact?" Marla inquired, inching closer. "What if it returns? The darkness, what if it seeks to reclaim us?" Drawing on the newfound strength that surged through them, he nodded. "That's why we must stay vigilant. The shadows took root because we buried our own truths, our own fears. Now that we've faced them, we have a duty to nurture the light. Quiet understanding settled amongst them. They knew the past could not be entirely erased. The shadows had left their mark, but with each other's support and the shared resolve to face the darkness, they could rewrite their destiny. Together, we can ensure that those shadows never return, he continued, glancing around at the hopeful faces. But we must cultivate the light, honor those we lost, and forge a new legacy, a legacy that acknowledges that darkness exists, but it does not determine who we are. We will teach our children that both light and shadow coexist in the world, and it is through our strength that we choose which one to nurture. As dawn unfolded, filling the village with golden light, they began to gather the remnants of their ruined homes, a communal effort imbued with purpose. The air was filled with determination. With each stone picked up, with every splinter of wood gathered, they rebuilt not only their houses, but their spirits. As they worked, laughter rose above the toil like birds taking flight. Each shared moment became a stitch in the fabric of community, binding them together even tighter. They discovered that together, through toil and laughter, they could transform sorrow into strength. Marla moved gracefully through the crowd, encouraging those who hesitated and sharing ideas on revitalizing their garden plots, coaxing life from the barren earth. She whispered to the children, ensuring they understood the weight of their ancestors' history, but also the gifts left for them in the wake of tragedy, potential to cultivate beauty, to sow seeds of hope. We plant a garden, she declared, rallying the children around her. A garden that stands for our promise to nurture life in honor of those who came before us. I want to help, a young girl called out, eyes wide with excitement. Can I plant flowers? Yes, Marla laughed, her spirit lifting with inspiration. Flowers bring joy and beauty. We'll plant colors in abundance. As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the day, they began to clear the earth and turn the soil, exposing dormant roots, coaxing life back to their land. Each turn of the earth echoed with the laughter of children and the songs of old, and with each seed planted, they reaffirmed their commitment to growth, healing, and unity. The elders shared stories as they worked, weaving tales that reminded everyone of the battles fought and the victories won. They painted vivid images of love lost and reclaimed. The stories flew from lips like whispering winds, carrying strength through the very marrow of the children, filling them with dreams of what could be. With the hours passing, exhaustion painted their faces, but the spirit of rejuvenation wrapped around them like a cloak. They were not simply working to restore the village. They were reconstructing the very fabric of their existence, entwining it with threads of resilience and unity. As twilight approached, the village buzzed with a newfound energy. They gathered around a large fire pit in the village square, watching the flames dance. A ritual had begun, one that had been lost but would now be remembered. He stood before them, heart pounding in his chest. Today, we claim not only our village, but our lives. Together we've proven that darkness does not define us. It is our choices that illuminate the way forward. Applause rippled through the crowd, hands rising in solidarity. The elders nodded, approvingly, revitalized by the palpable energy that coursed through the gathering. We will honor our ancestors by telling their stories, he continued. We will pass on what we have learned through our struggles, teaching the children how to embrace the light while standing aware of the shadows. May we always remember that we are not alone. The stars began to twinkle overhead, a blanket of morning glories that they would keep alive in memory. He sensed the collective heartbeat of the village as they joined hands, each soul connected in a tapestry of shared hopes and dreams, a living testament to their rediscovered strength. Together, they sang songs that rose through the dusk, filled with the hope of a new dawn. Songs that spoke of wildflowers blooming where destruction once thrived. Songs that would send ripples through history, weaving light into a tale that would echo through generations. We are born anew, they sang, voices merging with the night. And in that moment, he realized that while the shadows may always exist, so too did the light, and within the embrace of their unity, they had forged a legacy of strength that transcended darkness. As the fire crackled, laughter mingled with the song, wrapping them in warmth and comfort. They would face whatever lay ahead, together, once and for all, standing tall against the adversities of both light and shadow. In the distance, the landscape stretched wide, filled with new potential. And as the stars began to shimmer in the night sky, he closed his eyes, feeling the heartbeat of the village echo with hope. If this story of rebirth and resilience ignites a fire within you, if you wish to witness more captivating tales that inspire and illuminate the path forward, subscribe to our channel, Medieval Stories. Join us as we weave the threads of history and folklore, embarking on adventures that shape our understanding of the world and ourselves.